The day was ordinary, May 25, 2020. Sun warmed the Minneapolis streets, people moved through their lives. At the corner of 38th Street and Chicago Avenue, life felt normal. Cars passed, neighbors greeted each other, it was just another intersection. In a city like any other city, no signs foretold the shift, no omens whispered of the coming storm. This neighborhood was a tapestry, woven with different threads, different colors, different stories. People bought groceries at Cup Foods, they waited for buses, they lived their quiet dramas, their joys and their sorrows. The call came in the evening, 8 o'clock and 8 minutes past. A report of a counterfeit $20 bill, a minor offense, some might say, but it set in motion a chain of events that would sear themselves into memory. Police officers arrived at the scene. They found George Floyd, a black man, sitting in a car. The encounter began. It escalated quickly. By 8:19, he was on the ground, pinned, face down on the hard asphalt. An officer's knee pressed into his neck. The pressure was relentless, unyielding. The minutes began to stretch, each second an eternity of suffering. Onlookers gathered. Their phones became eyes, recording, witnessing. The sirens faded, the ambulance departed, but the ground held the stain, the air held the echo. The community could not turn away, they could not simply walk past. This corner, 38th and Chicago, was transformed. It was no longer just an intersection. It became a place of mourning, a place of anger, a place of resolve. People gathered, they brought flowers, they brought candles, they brought their grief. They started calling it George Floyd Square. The name was not chosen by city officials, it rose from the people, from the streets. It was an act of reclamation, an act of defiance.
The sorrow was too large for silence. It demanded expression. It found its voice in art. The streets around George Floyd Square became a gallery, an open-air museum of pain and hope. Walls became canvases. Murals of George Floyd appeared. His face, often serene, sometimes anguished, watching over the space, reminding everyone why they were there, why this place mattered so intensely. Color exploded onto the gray concrete. Bright yellows, deep blues, stark blacks and whites. Artists, both local and from afar, contributed. They painted messages of solidarity, cries for justice, portraits of other stolen lives. The art was a conversation, a visual dialogue about race, about police brutality, about the America that is.
Section 5, the heart of the matter, voices and visions for the square. The square was a place of unity, but also a place of complex questions. What should become of this sacred ground?
The city spoke of infrastructure. Roads needed paving, pipes under the street were old, leaden. They proposed construction, a return to a kind of normalcy.
Years of community engagement had shaped these plans, or so it was said by some officials. Progress was needed, but many in the community resisted.
Janelle Austin from Rise and Remember spoke for them. She emphasized the emotional weight. This was not just pavement, this was a memorial, a site of ongoing protest. To build over it felt like erasure.
Councilmember Jason Chavez heard these voices. He proposed a pedestrian-only plaza.
Section 6. A cry heard round the world, global echoes of justice. Those 9 minutes and 29 seconds. They did not stay confined to Minneapolis. The horror of that recording, the raw agony of I can't breathe. It broke through borders, it crossed oceans, it resonated in hearts worldwide.
People who had never heard of George Floyd, people who lived thousands of miles away. They saw their own struggles reflected, their own fears, their own demands for human dignity, from Paris to London, from Berlin to Tokyo, from Sydney to Rio de Janeiro. Massive crowds poured into the streets. They chanted his name, they carried his image, they knelt in solidarity.
The issues were local yet universal. Police brutality, systemic racism.
Section 7, the unfinished reckoning policy, promises and pushback. The global outcry demanded action, not just words, not just symbolic gestures. People called for real police reform, for accountability, for an end to impunity. In the United States, cities and states debated new laws. Chokeholds were banned in some places. Body camera policies were revised. There was talk of defunding, of reimagining public safety. A national reckoning on race seemed underway. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives blossomed. Corporations pledged billions. Institutions promised to do better, to listen more, to be more inclusive. Streets were renamed. Holidays reevaluated. There was a sense, for a moment, of profound shift.
Section 8 5 years on George Floyd Square in 2025. Today is May 25, 2025. 5 years have passed. 5 years since George Floyd's life was stolen. Here at 38th and Chicago, George Floyd Square feels different now, yet achingly familiar. Many of the initial barricades are gone. Traffic flows more or less as it once did.
The city has made some changes. The raw, immediate intensity of 2020 has softened, but it has not disappeared. It has settled deep. The spirit of the square endures. The fist sculpture still stands tall, a defiant sentinel. Murals remain vibrant. Though weathered by 5 Minnesota winters, flowers are still laid, candles are still lit, people still come. Section 9. The legacy etched in time, beyond 9 minutes and 29 seconds. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. A sliver of time. Yet it holds an eternity of pain, an eternity of consequence. In those minutes, a man's breath was stolen. George Floyd's life was brutally ended, but in the aftermath of that horror, something else was born. A movement was reignited. A global consciousness was pricked. His death, so senseless, so tragic, it forced a mirror before the world. What is the legacy of that moment? Of that man? It is complex. It is still unfolding. It is written in changed laws, some good, some insufficient. It is seen in fallen statues, in new murals. It is heard in ongoing protests, in difficult conversations about race.